The events of the event unfold on the field of force, and one of the young warriors talks about how it was very bad for me on the personal side. A certain number of warriors passed by their battle-stricken opponents only looking at who survived and who didn't. In one of the aisles, I looked at the man who was lying down, only to be told that he had survived. Only one of the warriors said that the one took off in the mist. The knight drew his sword, only glanced at the rest of the warriors and began to turn around, walking off into the sunset. The events take us to another time, where the TV is telling us that it is a beautiful and sunny day. Just as with attention to the citizens to drink more water, came a guy standing with his back to us in relation to this protagonist, to which he started walking towards the door, saying that he should already be on his way to work. Thinking about how very tired he was, he held his head, and suddenly he's out of the room and he's plummeting, literally stooped and violent. The hero immediately seemed to feel a pain in his chest that made him unable to even move. Realizing that his life had become routine and suddenly cut short by a man who was burned out couldn't find a new life in another world. But here the events are again transferred to the young war in the period when he was doing his duty. It was the protagonist, to which he was immediately asked by turning, "Why does he make that gesture again?" To which the kid, seeing her, said it was his habit and he does it without thinking. On this guy, just another, content to have them already as they need to join the fighters. But many military men who stood their ground began to wonder if the commander might be griping again about how afraid he was that others only thought he enjoyed being picked on. At that one of the guys, I turned to the next character saying, "How about him, so how did he destroy the 9-year-olds? And he could be proud of himself too." But our hero only cried out indignantly that this was not something to be proud of. But the guy doesn't consider why he thinks that, because it's really a reason to be proud when he was able to take down the 9. To the fact that our hero, I answered only that it is only his job, and he destroys not for numbers. Since he's just an ordinary soldier, nothing more and nothing less. But here the guy smirked at such words, talking about what he seemed to be an immeasurable amount of pathos. On our hero turning around too, said he still seems about what he says about pathos. But his boys made the decision that they should leave the house as one of them was already tired, on being a hero like her. I laughingly said he didn't believe it since he'd seen it, just sitting his ass down. And for some time afterward in the ward with a broken heart, a certain number of campfire sitters were warming themselves near. And someone was guarding all the ammunition in their ward. The heroes were just sitting around the fire eating their food for the first time in a day. And just barely as he reached out to take a bite of his piece of food, suddenly someone snuck up behind him and interfered with his trapeze. It was one of the warriors who approached the guy, immediately started talking about how he had heard that the guy was able to put down 9, and also kept saying that he had 15 of them to his credit, which meant he was good. About being heroes, I immediately said that he is still not his equal, addressing the commander, because the man immediately laughed. They say that of course not, because he has dangerous skills. Other lands also noticed that they understood everything perfectly, but magic, those skills were just not fair. To which the man immediately looked at these guys. I didn't immediately realize who they were. Talk to the one I'm with the mohawk, and this is the burrito, and the one with the world face Noor. They were very pleased to meet the commander in person. Though about how there's nothing dishonest about his skills. Since that part of his skills and abilities, this guy immediately said it's still too strong and dishonest. But also a girl how to understand his skills. The truth about what he can do. The commander immediately said that of course so, as it was the truthful truth of all the truth. Because his skills are the coolest. And a guy who was sitting not far from our hero asked him if he was really that cool. Our hero said definitely yes. After all, he should just even think. Unlike magic and might, which can only be dreamed of, skills are enhanced physical abilities that anyone can master. And one of the commander's abilities is precisely the lightning destruction technique. The guy, as soon as he heard about it, only I thought, that would be cool if he had that skill, as he alone in one can turn the tide of war in any world at large. It would also be cool to have money-making skills. The guy's only quip was that he's always with his jokes. The guy keeps saying because he doesn't have the same skills, and wish he had the same skills as the commander. Meanwhile, hero, I continue to sip my drinking glass, talking to your interlocutor about how easy it is, so she would love to have the skills / They also have a magician, and he wanted to do magic, right? About what the hero immediately said about dreaming of men's ways of life being enough on principle. Not a bad thing. And as soon as the lad heard about it, he immediately looked intently in his father's direction. He immediately jumped up, turning to the commander and said that he had just said he was dreaming about something, talking about how this man who gave the ability to fight at full strength against any opponent on this commander immediately interjected that what had happened, about how maybe he should just talk it out. It would make him feel much better. And the hero immediately replied that he didn't like the staff at work. At the same time, everyone started to react very violently to their boyfriend, and he just asked them all to work and shout like that, because he can hear everything perfectly well without it. Well, then the commander started to say what about their future plans would be next. Since they have many battles ahead of them, they should not relax in the future. I continue to speak as tomorrow. Once they rest, their non-enemy now becomes mirrored. Also keep talking about today when they completely smashed the Liberal Trade Federation and went after the Miard Kingdom. And also the war against the Liberal Inns was only an excuse, such that their true target was mirrored. And they also joined the advancement of the squad as well. At Commander Echidna's grin, he said that they had already had their fun, and they had had enough, as they would have a very hard journey tomorrow. Everyone immediately from the squad began to cheer, realizing that their next war would be Miard. It's also something they've never encountered before, because there's only the most real carnage ahead of them. And they should make preparations now, as they will be moving out at dawn. To which the heroes immediately began to remember how someone asked him to destroy it, but simply to take the money, asking, "Seem him or not?" To which Guy immediately said he couldn't hear him and he would follow orders. To which one of the knights immediately swung his sword to strike. But here the commander was speaking sharply about what was owed to him. And in a short time, the entire fighting army moved out on its way. But in the row, the commander turned to the hero again, talking about seeing what he sees the one in the clouds flying at what the hero interjected about him. Is it coming? Meanwhile, the army had already approached the city of Saria, realizing about the fact that they are until morning free. So they planned to spend the evening tonight with the commander, asked, "At our hero, will he go with them?" Something the latter kindly agrees to say that he will go. But suddenly here comes a girl who asks the question of how does he behave with her at night, to which our hero only nodded and heard further, as the girl kept asking how he was acting at night with her. And already at this point, everyone started immediately saying that they were either beggars or would do anything for money. The guy is fine, isn't he? But he immediately said it only hurt him to even look at them. But the girl, by all her adaptation, was very insistent that she immediately grabbed the guy's clothes, asking her question. But which he immediately rudely replied, no, as he is not very much interested in this proposal. To which the girl was at length very much distressed, for she had counted on the fact that looking at her was really painful. But our hero immediately held out his hand with food, offering to tell the girl she had something to eat. The girl immediately took what she gave to the whole character, and I was suddenly back there, showing the magnitude of what she said. "Thank you." A slight smile also appeared on the same guy's face, and he only escorted the girl who was running away with his gaze. But the commander immediately told the guy not to feed them, but our hero only said that he just wanted to help her, nothing more. But in the other guy, No had already said that if she blabbed to everyone about these poor people surrounding him, it actually seemed like that was what they were going to do. Also, he's savvy about not showing his goodness and clouding his judgment, and also told the hero that he would be very careful, as this is a funny fact, since the guy destroys everything and anything that moves, but also does almsgiving. Heroes immediately exhaled and said that soldiers were just his job. The hero immediately lowered his equal eyes, for he understood perfectly well what poverty and hunger were, since he was born into a farming family away from the city, and by doing so, they were barely making ends meet with food the way the sky, not in money. And that's the only reason he went to service, because he sent most of the proceeds home. I didn't keep what I kept, that was change. After all, if they had that money, things would be very different. Reasoning and realizing that it was his family that was in the shoes of these people. But in fact, Saria, like all royal traditions, used to be prosperous. The hero would of course be so surprised by the interjection of questioning about whether this backwater hasn't always been like this. And yet 5 years ago, one royal canon decided to fortify themselves on the borders with the empire by building up a core force. And the commander immediately began to speak, for he remembers how he was then greatly surprised that they were so small battle and beat off their wooden skins. And there the animals are fed to the broads he usually eats for lunch. After all, they had very fertile land and endless fields. But that same very delicious moment recalls the commander, even a little invited, in a way that counted, used to be good times for me then, what it is now. But one of the boys immediately inquired of the commander what had happened then, that this village had become so poor, though it had been prosperous before. The commander, too, explained that he had become like the great Duke of Mird, formerly a nobleman of royal customs, and he had betrayed his neighboring kingdom as well. Participating in federations, he had opposed his former state. And the last cannons burned one by one the whole country. In the blink of an eye, Oka became a scorched earth in the end, and only ruins remained of it. Mird, on the other hand, took over the entire infrastructure and brought his name to himself by a monarch royal of long ago. And this place became this way because it was given to Mird to eat. I will go on to say that there is no way the empire could have done this because of military aid. The hatred of the Nevians and Miardu and the Federation, much more than many could have imagined. And even though they were also at war with them, that's how hard this world really is. But all the heroes could think about was the fact that the couple would have returned the favor to Mird anyway, and just a short time later they did arrive at the place, holding their way. And already, sitting in the goal, they were discussing the cases that had been with the libertarians, and after all, Let victory foster leaders in the Miard as well. At the fact that over the conversation, the heroes immediately reached out, pulling out food. And he immediately began to eat, his eyes literally glowed. The guy watching all this also smiled slightly, holding a glass in his hand. And the hero was smiling, for he had not eaten for a long time, though they had been on the road so long. And just moments later, the commander stood up, turning to the hero, asked in an orderly manner whether he was on the other guy. Padobi, they seem to have eaten you. And you so happened. Our hero a little too much and on what the commander immediately said that he, in all his snotty glory, as there were quite a few drunken empty glasses at the table. Meanwhile, the guy pushed back his stool and stood up, setting aside a small violin from his chair. The hero stand against the wall, just thinking about the fact that Saria had always been in this state. For a moment, his despair set in and he too exhaled. I think of him as just a common soldier, but nothing more. Though at the same time, what a soldier. He's probably just a man who destroys everything in his path. But already the next morning, the commander welcomed all his men, in that war that stood in formation, looking intently at the man who valued them. The man also introduced himself that he was the commander-in-chief of the Miardian Front Army, Gerhard Berger. He continued to watch all his fighters, saying that everything they earned here represented the courage of the Provisional Empire, and with the help of their volunteer warriors, they could finally put an end to the 5-year war, saying that they should not spare their enemies and destroy them in equal combat, and also that they should infuse them with all their fury. He immediately struck his fist, struck by all the combat key, to which almost all the soldiers immediately raised their swords and spear token to salute the commander and raise their morale. But among all who rejoiced, there was a hero who was by all his clothes not very happy about it. The way he thought of it, they were just ordinary soldiers and nothing more. But one of the guys who was standing next to the hero immediately asked him how he was feeling, as he looked quite pale, to which the hero also said that it was probably because of the hangover. But the guy goes on to say that if he's going through us yesterday, he understands everything perfectly well. And besides, by the way, he doesn't have any money, just in case he wants to feed brooches again. Meanwhile, the Empire's army split into 3 units and advanced from Saria in 3 directions that confronted Miarda's defenses. And in the central direction stands a huge castle on the enclosing road with a garrison of 3,000 warriors. Meanwhile, the Empire's siege camp suggests that they are very lucky that their war started with this particular castle. The same commander started telling everyone that he had a plan and he was now lighting them all on fire, but they need to be very careful that they understand exactly what they should do. Meanwhile, our hero Ya just stood back holding his mouth and thinking about how badly he was feeling at the moment. The guys immediately began to interject, telling them to be careful for they might go cuckoo at the fact that one of them asked the other guy in an orderly manner whether he was onto something immediately that yes, since he had nothing to eat. But then the hero asked the guy to please, don't get the newbies, please. To which the guy immediately replied that he seemed to be able to find an approach to that. There's talk of him just trying to defuse the situation since this is also his first time taking part in Siege Castle. And by the way, it's in the vanguard as cover for the ladders, and it's kind of more of a melee weapon. But here he is told about the fact that they were not afraid, as if they would be perfectly fine, and they shouldn't worry about it. Since even if the enemies get to them, they will definitely be covered by the commanders, and he can certainly destroy the enemy's contacts with neither muzzle nor eye. To which the other immediately laughed, for he had said so being somehow strong. However, he really doesn't want them destroyed. To which some began to say about our hero, they say that they have heard that he handled the 9 during his domination with the liberal Taurians. But they were still afraid, and that was okay. But here the fellow replied sharply that he stuck to him like a trivial leaf, for he seemed to be the one to rely on. And suddenly behind their backs and listening to the voices and sounds, the guys turned around began to realize, since it was very clear from the sounds that they were already quite close to them. At this, commanders immediately state that they can show him how to speak in real combat. To which our hero only glanced up with a look, preparing for a future fight. All the fighters immediately waited to reflect the blow in front of their shields. Including our hero, I also became behind the shield, and here's well in the drool prepared for the start of the fight. Since at this moment, they were already holding their defenses right in front of the castle, from where the warriors began to come out. Though of course, the first thing that flew in those days was arrows, which some fighters could hit, and the commander also realized that they didn't know how to do this power shots. The most important thing for them is not to miss this moment and viralize the arrow. But the hero immediately started shouting to the commander to keep his head down, as if he dried up for even a second he would immediately be hit with arrows. The commander immediately decided to give the order for them to move on the wall as soon as possible, which actually I more or less started trying to do right. They immediately lurched forward and moved toward the wall to fulfill the order to breed on the wall. But they also realized that they had started shooting at them from the watery spaces, and it was magic. Only I mouthed that in all likelihood they had already organized such a performance for them. But at some point, the commanders used their power to destroy the magician, which was actually how he was able to destroy the magician, who began bombarding them with water mediums. And the commander quickly realizes that he should have surrounded them as much as possible before they regrouped and came up with something new. But by the same token, they're beautiful in the same way that the hay hasn't been taken in yet, and the hero doesn't yet understand what they're going to do at this point. But then I came to think of it, so I realized that his guards were gathered most likely at the gate, and he thought they might have a breakthrough after all. And while I, hero, was thinking about a new plan, immediately came a snitch, who immediately said that he had reports from the commander, because they were ordered to help the contact, attacking all manifestations. That's why they immediately rushed to the attack with the whole squad. Climbed the wall on the signal, they still managed to put their morale on high, and not only shouted onward to victory. The hero also ran to the door and grabbed hold of one partition, shouting to the commander to stick with him on what he said he understood and would do. And they already began to climb the wall together, where at the top was an army that was literally gathering them already, as well as disciples who were aimed at them, shooting arrows of their own. But still, our hero, I was able to break through the first line of defense and climb the wall, destroyed the archer who was literally aiming for this some forum to climb the wall. And already at this moment, a sufficient number of warriors began to make their way to the wall, which in fact is the conflicts immediately realized by giving the command that they have already climbed the wall. And already a moment unleashed wallpaper, and she herself, the protagonist, easily destroyed for another of their rival. And not two of them did not lose a chance to stand. While the military actions that protected the wall were also good, they didn't allow all the heroes and army to pass through fast enough. But that was certainly a good thing. It's not enough for them to be unable to stop a hero who literally destroyed everything that moved without giving any chance at all. But immediately after destroying one warrior after another, a knight in various forms stood in front of them, who was very well uniformed and very heavily trained. What's on his mind and movie view of his future conflicts with international communities, he will say. What he in fact and began to do, trying to hit our hero with his axe, but he failed because all the blow came on the shield. The knight was perplexed for a moment, for he had not expected that he would not be able to be destroyed in one blow, and all in all he only leaned over the shield slightly, though he chopped it down with ease, before it was enough to win. And already at some point remained our hero, me and the knight. And on the sides there were wars who only fought among themselves, and also watched what the duel would be, because they were perfectly equal that in the blink of an eye, the two strongest rivals collided. The hero here turned to the cruiser, saying he had the strength. Only the rookies have more practice to beat him. But the knight immediately said that he immediately seized the empire. After all, he had no behavior, and he no longer allows him to trample the land of Miard. Therefore, the knight immediately threw towards our hero for a punch of perfection. Although the knight managed to get as close to the hero as possible, but he did not expect that it would not be so easy, because he did not appreciate his opponent. Since our hero was not a simple soldier, he could overpower an attacking knight with a sweep of his sword, but not only that. Although on the same side of his arm, the knight got a grip on his arm and managed to survive, but it still wasn't enough for him to win yet. And the hero is well aware that if he hesitates, there will be annihilation. The hero realizes perfectly well that in a good way, he should have been in command with such a bulky man. But as it was offered, too, he didn't even go up on the wall. And he understands exactly what the pandemic means to him, to deal with this Gramila himself and to help the man he killed as quickly as possible. So he immediately adopted a fighting stance, just like the knight. Protecting himself with shield in hand, they literally looked at each other intently. But the hero also raised his sword and looked at the knight with a very sinister look, realizing that it was about to be a good battle. So our hero immediately decided to go like this, and the first thing he did was to try to destroy the knight with a punch. But it wasn't that simple after all. The knight didn't want to just give up like that, he just kept saying it to each hero to set himself instead of making himself. That being said, the knight did actually apply a mechanical strike, but it still missed as the hero was able to turn away from the knight's strike. Well, that knight also began to say that the halberd should destroy the opponent, but in school it is impossible as he did not believe that he would not be able to hit. Meanwhile, our hero, I was literally enveloped by a magical barrier that actually spoke of a knight, and also sparkled as he didn't realize what was happening with that second. The hero immediately swung his sword, realizing what she wanted, and his sword became much lighter for it. But the knight interrupted his thought. He told him not to relax as they weren't done yet. And the duel further continued to build up its momentum. Our hero was able to swing, and with one blow to shatter the knight's defense, destroyed his shield and also hooked his arm. After that, our hero immediately laughed. My smile has never been like this before. After all, he is well aware that these movements affect him in a very different way, and these are powerful skills. After all, not only was he able to destroy the shield, but he was also able to destroy his opponent. And moving away from the defeated knight, he too thought with the commander, but he heard how the enemies did not always discern who it was what kind of man it was, for they could not keep with the theme that he had so requested, to eliminate the one-strike knight strongest of them all. Meanwhile, while the heroes I moved around the wall, all the stronger defenders spread out a little to the right and left. As a consequence of this, the commander appeared and shouted with a battle cry that they had taken the wall and could not retreat one step back, since they have to destroy every single thing to the point of simplicity and completely take over this entire wall. And the commander immediately turned around looking at our hero, turning to him with interest, whether all is well, which the hero immediately said that yes, because he thought that his early view is not too deep. It was a common injury at the same time, but still the heroes were considered on guard as the battle is still going on. The thing that actually continued to ponder further did not stop for a second, and all the defenders that were protecting the wall one by one were defeated. Clearly there was little he could do to help in this situation, but he still couldn't be blamed for it. The commander also immediately pointed out that I wasn't doing too badly as a hero, because although he was injured, he still continued my reflection. And also the commander said that he could see that the one had mastered the skills very well. So some of the guys started to approach the hero with interests. Why doesn't he take a vacation since he can leave the rest of his professional life behind? From this, hero immediately kicked in. Still, he remained just watching as the other wars mopped up the wall and moved further inland. But while the hero stood and watched everything that was happening, a girl came up to him and called his name. The girl also thanked the hero for saving her, smiling and awkwardly looking at him, and also talked about how she's really grateful, and it seems like she can get back on track now. The hero smiled, and she was the only one who said she was glad that she could already get back on track and she was fine. But he took off his helmet, immediately exhaled in an uneven manner, somehow survive again, looking up at the sky. He only thought about it. Putting his head down, he kept thinking about what had happened and how he had managed to squeeze everything out, because not only was he injured, he was on the border. And already at this point, the hero was approached by the commander, who said that it seems to be the work of me. On that other me also stated that he seems to possess the elements of fire and wind. And also the judge, by the looks of it, there are only 2 of them left, because they managed to destroy all the others. Some are also not equal. Also some can be considered magic. And after the siege had already passed a few days, some detachments began guerrilla warfare in the forests and on the roads, and also the army was advancing towards the enemy's capital and was stopped on these routes. Moving on to a new episode at this point, which is ongoing. The guys only kept discussing among themselves, because their caravan had been attacked again. It was the 3rd day of war searching for those who attacked the caravan, as they only know how to hide and attack small caravans. But they also realized that these were not halberds, for too large an area had been hit despite a man to destroy, but the commander sharply told the hero simply the word shield. And they also started thinking about how a person, if it's the shield and it's true, could the person responsible for it have skills? Since there are a lot of people using their power abilities, and it's most likely an iron wall, since with it even a wooden shield becomes like a steel shield and uses such skills, just causing such effects. They have at least 2 gifted, and one uses magic, and the other mired skill will be used by such people in guerrilla warfare. Here's anything is possible, since even an entire squad went in search of them, and as a result, 30 of their warriors were sick. They should have nailed them a long time ago, but they've been slipping away forever, as they've been very quite good at hiding, and in some wars you couldn't even see them with camouflage. At this time, our hero, while pondering all this, decided to take a little rest by smoking a cigarette. But then he immediately thought, for could they detect the smell of tobacco? But on the same side, it's unlikely, they stink much stronger. Besides, had he ever met a wolf in the woods? But one guy decided to make a joke, said that if he perfumes himself, nothing bad will happen on the fact that she is our hero. I also decided to make a joke on him, said that it is a good idea. And he should not forget to put on, as enemies appreciate this gesture. But then the girl suddenly, but something noticed, asked everyone to be quiet as she didn't want to wake him up talking, but noticed the cherry. This squad guy smiled sharply and said that these were the people who sold me yard, information about their... But the girl was puzzled for a moment, as it would be incomprehensible to her. But at the same time earlier, when he was still unaccustomed to such an order, someone had told him that they were the reason why 10 of their soldiers had been killed. The girl was a bit of this dumbfounded, and at the same time our hero continued to further smoke his cigarette. Another guy made the point that if they destroy the attackers in the caravan, they get trophies with them. But they don't necessarily equal how they defeat the gifted, since it amounts to a reflection against the commander. I realized that even if there were 20 people like him, he probably wouldn't have succeeded either. But our hero was a little surprised because he was already enrolled in the gifted, since it was even readable by his Zamu, for he did not understand with what it was by him at once enrolled in the gifted. But then suddenly something happened, and what many people immediately turned around not realizing what had happened. They immediately realized that 3,400 meters ahead, someone had run into their warriors. Deciding that they should go around to the right side, just as realizing that they were Trap's commander, also swept them up so that they would by no means miss them. The commander immediately, one Prakasa, goes on the offensive, and the entire Rava immediately move into battle, including the heroes also with a sure carryover, destroy the very ones who attacked them from the point of view of comrades. And already running up to the scene of the battle, and they immediately notice some of the fighters. Warriors immediately realized that the commander of this squad, I did not understand that reinforcements came running to them, which actually happened meanwhile. Our hero I already attacked. He literally destroyed all his opponents one by one, and at some point he saw some fighter. His look immediately changed. After he eliminated one of the fighters, he also turned his gaze around and was a bit shocked. I don't understand. After all, they were leading a squad of adventurers ahead of them, and were a bit overwhelmed by it. One of the girls immediately decided that something should leave as quickly as possible, as she realized that they were being surrounded, turned to the commander, and immediately rushed from the exit of the place. Dueling, they realized that they are indeed all surrounded. But also the girl did not understand what he meant by the word adventurers, and immediately explained because these people fight demons and guard the dungeon at the same time, when she had thought that the Miard army was so good at guerrilla warfare. But the hero is well aware that if their ranks of adventurers then remained only elite knights. But in the meantime, the battle continued on both sides. And at some point, one of the warriors addressed the round, saying that he was the one with the technological structure, which in fact the one would be a bit perplexed, not understanding what he was talking about. It was the commander, who immediately began to say that he had heard that the guild would not interfere in the war, but across the country it was not so bad, for it's strange on another caller. He immediately asked the question, is he familiar with the word mercenary? The character was able to overpower one of the opponents in the movie, and he was also a bit of a shocker. Since it's unclear how, but each character literally tried to take down the snitch, though he was able to resist and was even able to strike back. With a whirlwind, he was able to stand his ground and even had a fence. He immediately realized it was a wind blade attack and realized it was a mage. At this time, the king got down on one knee and looked intently in the direction of the politicians. He saw literally in the distance a girl standing literally 50 meters away from him. The girl was also at a loss as soon as she saw that she was spotted holding. She was holding a sword and shield, but the hero, I was equally surprised to see the girl. He immediately brought his attack, lunging at the girl and seeing as how he wanted to destroy her faster. But suddenly in front of her I emerged from the two warriors, who immediately shouted for the hero to attack them first. On the hero throughout the length of it, not a tittle did not embarrass, as his look did not change at all, and no warehouse did not touch, so that literally in one attack he was able to destroy one of the warriors who became in his way. Saying the only thing -1 and then looking at the other warrior, all he said was that he would be next. And the same movie attack literally hit to destroy the second opponent that was in its path. The girl only watched the whole thing, not realizing that such a thing was possible, was because he was able to get rid of the two knights quickly enough. Although at the same time in France, all I was asking for was to be rescued. On the stannery just told him to shut up since no one ever helped him anywhere. And for a moment already, the girl began to realize that I was waiting in a way that a guy was so far disconnected from a man. As soon as he finished filming, he immediately turned around, throwing a glance in the girl's direction, but she didn't understand how he could. Her eyes reported back with intense fear, for not that it had not happened, but she feared with great intensity from what might have happened to her. The hero turned even more towards the girl and threw a glare at her. I was literally no longer face to face, looking at each other, realizing there was no escaping the fear. But also the hero only talked about the battlefield being the norm, and he was sure she had her own hands in doing such a thing in a way that was not at all surprising. But as many girls have seen a guy attack her, she is immediately ready to attack. The hero immediately realized it was a spell, and then to top it off, it was the same trajectory. The hero wasn't that easy, so he was immediately able to dodge as he already understood what kind of trajectory it would be and what kind of attack, so he had already thrown his blows. The hero was a bit surprised as he immediately cast his weapon, but the girl managed to put a shield in front of him, and in a way he did save her life, as the hero only hit the shield. But from inertia, the girl flew away a few meters, and the hero did not even twitch his facial muscles. He just and watched. As he continued to stare this way and that, he stopped looking with his gaze in the direction of trust. He immediately began to wonder what that question would be about, because it didn't make sense, somehow he thought. But at the same time, he didn't understand why. After all, the girl on the other side was wounded perfectly fine anyway, something she wasn't used to destroying, so he only began to take steps to the side. Each step got closer and closer to the girl sitting in the same spot because she couldn't go anywhere. Hero. I continue to look at the girl, who has already also raised her gaze without looking in the direction of our hero. Hero's the only thing this time was talking to her to finally give up already. The girl is very much frightened, but suddenly something happened. But then footsteps were heard, which showed themselves quickly enough to the hero and the girl. Heroes immediately pulled back and looked at the one who looked, but he also didn't let that girl out of his gaze. He immediately launched vicious blows toward the girl, but I was lucky she overreached and wasn't hit. The girl was very badly frightened. Her tears gave it away as well as her eyes. Although at the same time the heroes didn't stop attacking the girl, but at one point when the heroes heard their attack, someone's hand, I literally flipped out. And the hero couldn't get a glimpse of what happened. He didn't realize what. And just moments before, someone repelled our hero's attack, preventing him from striking. The character is the same crouching on the knee of the video in front of me, silhouette that appeared. It was one of the squad members who turned to the girl telling the commander to stay behind his back. The hero at this point finally realized that this girl was in charge of the squad. The guy looking at our hero immediately stood in a fighting stance, preparing to repel the attack while the heroes at this time rose to their feet. The heroes were just saying that he was starting to get pissed off about it. So the first thing he did was rush into battle right at the Soparik, who was defending the squad leader. But it never went away as our opponent was able to come back, and he immediately realized that this accelerated body technique, you realize that this guy is also a gifted guy. He immediately went on the attack. I don't understand, mock air. Though our hero was easily able to stop the attack with my counterattack, knocking down my opponent's legs. So he immediately asked if he was sure he could handle that kind of knowledge. But this guy immediately asked him to shut up and never spoke to him again. Though at the same time he was a bit surprised as he wasn't officially strong of his opponent. And heroes waste a lot of time, so he just rushed in like that. It is said that he was prepared to use his body acceleration to repel his attack. The girl immediately started yelling at the guy to take care of himself. And at that moment, a hero like that and a guy like that immediately turns his attention to his girl by looking at her. Although at the same time, they were standing literally a meter away from each other. The hero also started yelling at all the heroes that they were invaders. I'm not monsters who don't care about other people's suffering. Keep saying that I forgot about things because they destroy others without thinking about the fact that they can easily be destroyed as well, and they will be defeated. To which the guy immediately yelled at him to shut up because he didn't know what he was saying. The fight endured, though the lad suffered a blow, but our hero with ease from Rusty time after time. Prepare for the fact that she strikes her blow, which actually happened, but that the video girl her lived as she realized that this fight I will end with only one final, which is exactly what happened as our hero. I was able to defeat his opponent by grabbing his sword. The girl didn't understand how such a thing was possible, since all her fighters had been completely destroyed. When he told her that perhaps she was destroying others, though on the same side he's a damn tongue. They huddled together in salt for a moment, looking at each other. But suddenly, hero, I saw an incredible attack, not realizing what just happened. For he did not know that it was the spell that was the spell of these animals in such large numbers, realizing that she had an ace up her sleeve for her head attack. Although the hero even smiled a little as he liked it, and at the same time the girl began to stand up holding a sword in her hand. She immediately cast her spell again, which the hero was a little surprised at, as he didn't understand how she still had the strength for such spells, as her attack was able to destroy a large number of wars that were unprotected. The commanders immediately realized that this spell was doing massive damage to their warriors to keep them down in no way. While the hero stood there as if nothing had happened and continued to hold his sword in his hand. The only thing is that after application, it completely disappeared, and now also the guy who was previously struck by our hero. Such a spell's incredible power drained her, but no one knew if it was worth it, because it seems that it was, since she still managed to escape from the battlefield. One of the guys approached the commander with questions should they go after her. To which the commander immediately replied that it was not necessary, since they had already dealt with the effect of the Miard army, and there was no point in doing more than necessary. But still the hero, I understood your adventurers were not so bad, and if they had been accustomed to what might be annihilated, the result would have been very different. But by the same token, the hero, I realized yet that he still didn't like destroying his opponents. Though at the same time, the girl still didn't understand what was wrong with this guy. The man very much started screaming, not realizing who they thought they were. He also went on to say, or rather shout, that he would not allow some snotty kid to treat him like that. Meanwhile, events shift to a man with his shaved head who raised his hand only to mutter for him to take his hand. Our hero at this time did not understand why he should take his hand, so he immediately asked if he had heard correctly that he had asked to hold his hand, to which he received an approving reply. Also, the man goes on to say that he heard yesterday that he was interested in magic, and they have a break a little, so now is the time for him to train him. To which our hero immediately took a man by the frame, and you have already said that he wants to learn very badly. But some fighters didn't understand what these two were doing, though the kid immediately explained that the man was handing the hero mana to teach him magic. Girl was surprised to understand how it happens, say what comes out that the hero will become a caster. But still they realize that they should live to see, since maybe he would teach how to use a fireball or water spears like the others. So no matter how you spin it, holding hands is a little bit of an attraction. But as soon as the heroes listened to this, he immediately threw a glance at the kid very embittered, and he immediately grabbed his head and said he was joking. But the man immediately asked our hero not to be distracted by all sorts of trivia on something, only she said yes. And already at some point the hero began to feel in his hand, but the man assured that this is normal because such a feeling of magical energy, and he should concentrate and breathe smoothly. And also he should focus on his breathing and think about the river or the sea, and even better it is suitable both options. The main thing is to ask for water. And already at that moment, the hero saw in his hand a manifestation of water. He immediately questioned the man. Is it true that this is magic? But the man looked at his hand and realized that the situation was getting out of control and it was very bad. He also immediately said that there is water, but it's a pussycat though, since it may be enough to make him a source to begin with. But the heroes hearing about some source didn't understand what he was talking about and what he was saying. On what also commanders sharply laughed, said that they now have 2 sources, and from now on cannot save on water. A little surprised looked at the commander because I do not understand the joke or not. And also the man asked that the hero stop creating water because he should take care of his mana now. Because if he can't stop, he'll dry up like a raisin in the sun. Well, besides, he should consider the destructive power of his skill, and he wouldn't waste it on something like this. The heroes immediately began to realize that in all likelihood, come out this all the time he had been using mana to interrogate the men. To which he immediately replied that of course, since mana is required for both skill and magic. Because roughly speaking, if he uses mana for an elemental spell, it is classified as magic, and using mana to strengthen his body or weapon is called a skill. But the man was also surprised to hear the hero ask about it, since he thought he knew it, but the hero was assured he was still a redneck with no education. Which actually the man immediately I realized said that then they should find out his predisposition to fire magic. So they immediately sat down opposite each other and the man began to say to our hero. Although the moment they were focused, some fighters immediately dipped into the water and began to struggle dousing each other with water. And while the fighters were dabbling with water, our hero was able to create a blob of fire that scared him badly enough initially. He immediately turned to the man asking what to do as he felt in his hands very hot springs. He didn't realize what to do, as the fire energy began to burst out so strongly that it even fried one of the fighters' hair a bit. But the girl did not realize that our hero this case is not on purpose, so she immediately asked that he spared the guy, and the heroes at this time did not understand what it is about turning around. He saw how he really tucked accidentally hair, so he also said that he didn't do it on purpose, but by accident, because he didn't even realize what he should do at that moment. Just an enveloped magic with a nonchalant face like this happens every day, which actually set the hero back for a while and calmed him down a bit. And then the man shoved our hero to the other side so he wouldn't do anything else. Good thing he got in the water and didn't hurt himself, so he immediately stood up sharply to get up. But still the hero did not understand what had happened and why he had been thrown into the water. But the man had already at that moment approached our hero with just a hand outstretched and told him to take it. And as soon as the hero I grabbed the man's arm, he immediately pulled him to get the heroes up. He also said that it seems that he has a talent for fire magic. They should continue. That actually a little bit of our hero pleased, and on the other hand and scared. On what the only I watched the commander very closely, because he did not yet understand what would happen next. But while these events were happening, suddenly behind the back of the commander came a fighter on horseback, and the commander immediately realized that it came news from one of the places. Soldier, you said he had orders from the captain for him personally. But suddenly the commander asked the fighter if he felt something said about it being a massacre, since nothing in the world smells like it. But what to be afraid of immediately ran through her thoughts of him really being that crazy. And that the commander, after his speech, only continued to look with a glance in the direction of the fighter, with some side even aggressive. Well, also the man and the heroes watched the conversation that this is such a strategy, so the squad is ordered to link up with the main forces. Events shift to the plains of Reref. You realize that this time the Empire is sure to be defeated. The commanders immediately began to discuss on Anna, so which non-armies have fortified on some hills. Moreover, according to intelligence reports, the main forces are first heading towards Miard's army, leaving a small number of people to hold them back. I realize that at this point they're still on track. On the way to a battle that will decide the fates of entire nations, this strategist seems unshakable. The road of annihilation of regression, the words inscribed on the sign at his feet, like a motto leading him forward. His eyes narrowed, and in them you could read cold judgment. They hope to overpower our evil army, he pondered, already anticipating the coming victory. These hackers are just a bunch of crazies. His verdict is harsh but fair. He sees the enemy's hopes crumble under the weight of inevitability. "They don't stand a chance," he declares, turning to his warriors. In those words is not only confidence, but also promise. With a glance at the military camp, the strategist asks a key question. His words are brief, but they contain the depth of strategic genius. The strategist's gaze fixed on the figures of troops spread out before him. "There are no bridge nodes in their builds, right?" His question is not in doubt. "Yes, sir," the adjutant confirmed. The strategist's attention shifts to another aspect of the battle. A cavalry regiment of Jurfor. He can already see the picture of a battle in front of him, where every move is calculated. Murad will be attacked. His words are cut short, but they already contain a plan that could change the course of history. "They are not our target." Suddenly there's a change of tone in his voice, but he pauses, full of reticence and intrigue. The strategist raises his sword high above his head, his gesture full of determination. "Bring victory to your king." His order echoes throughout the camp, stirring the hearts of the warriors. His grin is full of cunning and confidence. "All moorings lie to me." He knows that the Lord of the Seas and that one may be a pawn in his game. "I'll make sure these barbarians beat each other up," he continues, already anticipating an enemy riven by internal conflict. "The hackers have made their move," he turns around suddenly. The game is changing its rules, and the strategist is ready to take on a new challenge. Warriors in full armor line up in rows ready for battle. "The hike has begun," one of them announces, their faces hidden behind masks of determination. "I think the point is that we've got them cornered," came a confident voice. The strategist's strategy is beginning to bear fruit. "Don't you think the Murads are a little mean today?" The joking tone doesn't hide the tension before the clash. What are we waiting for? Uncertainty among the ranks is met with determination. Has the fight started yet? The question is in the air. Anticipation turns to action. Apparently they're determined to defeat us. An acknowledgement of the reality of the situation, but each of them is ready to fight to the end. On the battlefield, where every second counts, emotions still find a place. A tear rolls down the warrior's cheek, a sign of fear, pain, or perhaps relief. His comrade looks at him bewildered. "P?" His gaze full of questions, not understanding the sudden display of feeling. And the gist of it is this. Strategists have devised some other plan. Even in the midst of battle, brains are at work, weaving intrigue and scheming. The battle map unfolds before the warriors, showing the path to victory. And in a time of general confusion, it will be our turn. The voice is full of confidence in the strategy. "We'll unite with Jurfor's regiment and strike a decisive blow," is the plan that should lead to triumph. The hero stares at the plan, his eyes wide with surprise and realization. Here it is, an opportunity to change the course of history. Questions and doubts are beginning to grow within the ranks of the army. Combine infantry with cavalry? Voice full of incredulity at a plan that seems insane. Our regiment performed well in the battle with the liverymen, their experience being beyond question. And why did they choose us? They don't understand why they've earned this honorable right. "Case Yaryan," the commander says firmly, his gaze heavy and serious. "Fucked up." He summarizes the current situation succinctly and accurately. A whisper spreads among the warriors. "Is everything that shitty?" The sarcasm in the voice of one of them hides the excitement. "The infantry will have to run alongside the horses," came the voice of another, where bewilderment mingled with a realistic appraisal of the situation. The commander does not lose his resolve. "Listen to this, I want to puke already." His rudeness serves as an attempt to boost morale in the ranks. "And you'll be ready to gut your babe by now," he continues, urging cruelty and ruthlessness. "You can't stop." The order is clear and uncompromising. The fate of each of them is in their own hands. "Because if you hesitate, you'll be trampled." The commander's speech carries the harsh realism of war, where mercy has no place. The commander addresses his subordinates with wild energy. "Do you also know why our unit was thrown to the cavalry?" His voice full of challenge. He continues, and his words sound like a sentence. "Because someone's been messing around with their fish." The accusation is thrown, and there's anger in it. The hero stands confused, his face showing shock. "Yeah?" He can't believe he caused this decision. The commander addresses the hero with defiance. "Doesn't the commander of the Douzaine express himself better than I do?" You can hear the underlying irritation in his voice. The hero, remaining unperturbed, replies, "It was clear that the task would be daunting." His restraint contrasts with the tense atmosphere. "It's understandable why they chose us. We have 2 skill holders," he continues, recognizing the special abilities of his squad. And on top of that, the magician... The commander's words give me a bad feeling. The hero listens intently, realizing the seriousness of the moment. The hero's gaze is fixed on the distant horizon. Will I hold out until the end, without dying? He whispered, both hope and fear in his words. The commander gives orders to his soldiers at the top of his voice. Shake off the fear! There are no orders to attack yet. He stands as steadfast as a rock, ready for any challenge. On the face of the commander reads anxiety. It seems that the plan went on the ride. Something may have happened to the vanguard of the main force. His gaze is thoughtful and serious. However, I don't think the Coast Commander-in-Chief misjudged the situation. On the battlefield, banners soared in the wind. These are the main forces of Ferris. The warriors are ready to fight. Their will to win is unwavering. The commander's face reflects the tension of the moment. What do we do? His question hangs in the air, full of anticipation for a solution. The warrior's eyes reflect worry. Why are there no orders? He's looking for guidance in this chaos. The commander is resolute. We're screwed if we don't do something. They'll send them. He calls for action by understanding the stakes. Look, Murata Reserve units. There is a mixture of surprise and challenge in his voice as he points out the new threat. The character's eyes reflect determination and anxiety. He is acutely aware of the weight of the moment, preparing for what is to come. Our goal is the stronghold of Ferris. Attack! A call for decisive action hangs in the air, banners fluttering in the wind. A mixture of bewilderment and urgency engulfs the army. Hey, are you crazy? Look! One of the warriors can't believe the risk they're about to take. We were going to attack the Murata. Resentment is growing among the ranks. What? Ferris? What's going on? Questions fly one after another, demanding explanations. The cavalry, like the elements, rushed into battle. Their power and speed breathtaking. The cavalry has already advanced. The hero, seizing the moment, shouts, Go! His voice cuts through the air, urging his comrades to follow the cavalry. To stop is to die, the beginning of a mad attack. The commander picks up on the energy of the moment, preparing the warriors for the decisive assault. The hero's gaze is full of determination as he screams, Fucking hell, fight in the same formation as the cavalry. Archers on horseback perform their maneuvers with grace, firing arrows at full speed. The warrior with sword in hand dives into the fray, his movement swift and decisive. The commander questioned, his face contorted with bewilderment. What do you mean by that? Fly fishing? He demands an explanation in the blink of an eye. Warriors rush into battle with an indomitable impulse. I don't know exactly, but... begins one of them, his voice full of hesitation and tension. The commander makes an assumption, his words sharp and confident. Probably the commanders foresaw the course of the battle. He continues, pointing to the strategic goal. Therefore, make the enemies attack with all their strength. And so the banner rushes forward. Our goal, reach their stakes faster than they reached ours. The warrior shouts, urging his comrades to take decisive action. Double or nothing. Either we are theirs or they are ours. They face a choice that will determine the outcome of the entire war. Amidst the battle turmoil of war is met with the news, They're coming! Her voice is full of anxiety. Eh? The soldier doesn't hide his surprise when the enemy approaches faster than expected. The situation is escalating. Hey, go away, die! Shouts a fighter, urging his comrade to avoid imminent danger. Fireball! Fireball! The hero uses his spell to fight back against his enemies, his voice full of determination. The hero, concentrating will and magic, shouts powerfully, Fireball! His spell carries the full power of his spirit. The force of the spell rains down on the battlefield, a flash of light and heat dispersing the darkness. Ah, it worked! Without hiding his delight, the hero exclaims, seeing the result of his powerful spell. The accomplished action marks a new turn in the battle, break in the enemy formation. The command sounds like a sentence for enemies stunned by the unexpected blow. The commander excitedly proclaims, We have to stop them, not one step back. The cavalry rushes into battle, cleaving the air with their lances, ready to break through the enemy ranks. Remove the barriers, make way for the cavalry. The orders come one after another, emphasizing the urgency of the moment. If we endure today, we will meet victory tomorrow. The commander keeps the morale of his soldiers high by motivating them to do exploits in the upcoming clash. The force of the blast scatters dust and reveals the extent of the breach, leaving enemies confused. The character stares at the chaos unfolding before him, his eyes reflecting the sudden realization of the situation. A new threat looms on the horizon and the warriors await further instructions. Jerfer's cavalry is approaching. Who doesn't want to go crazy? Light out of the way. The commander's voice resounds through the noise of battle, calling for focus and swift action. Jerfer's cavalry boldly advances, their ranks unyielding and powerful. like a wave ready to wash away everything in its path. In the midst of a battle where every moment can be decisive, warriors experience the tension and adrenaline of battle. The soldier on the ground experiences confusion and fear, his whispered words begging for protection. "Mom, help!" The fight for survival on the battlefield continues, and each of the warriors is ready to fight to the last. The troops are advancing, rushing across the battlefield with indomitable force, their footsteps like thunder. "This is still flowers," one of the soldiers remarks sternly, looking at the enemies. "Come away, it's too early to relax," he adds, warning his comrades against premature optimism. Forward thunderstorms in the form of... The commander motivates the warriors by reminding them of their power and inevitability. The fighters are assembled, each ready to act as a unit, ready for any challenge that fate presents. A scream is heard on the battlefield. "Baya!" is the sound, full of tension and adrenaline, as soldiers prepare for a decisive clash. The cavalry, encouraged by the battle cry, rushes forward, breaking through obstacles, striving for victory. "Royal Guardsmen!" A loud cheer sounds as a particularly brave warrior pierces through the enemy ranks, becoming a symbol of the courage and strength of his army. On the battlefield, the call goes out, "Stranger, do you want to die for a country that is foreign to you?" The lyrics are full of bewilderment and anger as the warrior faces the reality of war, which sometimes calls into question motives and sacrifices. "Run!" The order sounds and the soldiers react instantly, ready to retreat, realizing that sometimes retreat is the only way to survive and win in the future. The clash of swords, the explosion of emotions, and the adrenaline of battle fill the air as the battle continues. In the midst of the scrum, there are cries of, "Heavy! He reinforced!" The warrior feels the power of the enemy's blow, the difficulty of the fight, and the weight of the weapon. "Hooray!" A shout of encouragement and fighting spirit rolls through the ranks, inspiring soldiers to new feats. "You got in my way!" The soldier realizes the obstacle in front of him, but his resolve will not be broken. The battle rages on, and every fighter knows there is no retreat. "When are they going to run out?" shouts the commander, baffled by the endless waves of enemies crashing down on his troops. He feels every moment of the battle dragging on like an eternity. "I see movement on the left flank. They're leaving, avoiding the fight." The commander's desperate gaze turned toward the receding figures of the enemy, dodging a direct confrontation. "Squad, follow me!" The commander gathers his men for a counterattack, ordering them to follow him into battle to seize the moment and deliver a decisive blow. "We're a little busy here," screams the warriors as they fight the enemies that surround them on all sides. They are making a huge effort to hold their ground. "He sent these warriors to detain us," realizes the commander, realizing that the enemy is using a distraction to slow their advance. "Hold it right there, coward," shouts the commander, rushing towards the retreating enemy, determined not to let him get away and end this fight as soon as possible. "Jerk!" A warrior commander gallops ahead of his troop, leading them across the battlefields to victory. His determination knows no bounds, and he is ready to crush any obstacle in his way. Surprise and shock are displayed on the young warrior's face as he sees the might and bravery of his commander. This moment becomes a test not only of his fighting spirit, but also of his faith in his leader. With each step, each swing of the sword, the commander and his squad approach the climax of this epic battle, where the outcome of the battle hangs in the balance. The warrior's gaze, furtively watching his commander, is full of admiration and concern. The words that awaken his resolve hover in the air, using magic as a risk, but without it, the chances of success melt away. "That armor-clad bastard doesn't think to move," thinks the warrior, preparing for a decisive clash when every moment could be the last. The realization that they cannot reach enemy headquarters and that they cannot afford to lose the king fills the warrior with renewed vigor. Every movement, every choice, is a step towards victory or defeat in this ruthless game of war. From behind the clouds of dust and the rumble of battle, there is an exclamation of surprise. The warriors, turning their heads, see the incredible. Their comrade, contrary to all the laws of physics and expectations, floats in the air like a bird freed from the earth's shackles. "What's he doing? Take him away!" the soldiers shout, but their voices are drowned out in the chaos. An unexpected maneuver filled with desperation and fearlessness strikes their fancy. The magical energy that the warrior had decided to use was now drawing its path, creating an unpredictable vortex into the ranks of the enemy. This is the moment when a miracle becomes the only chance of victory. In the heart of the scrum, the order goes out, "Go yourself!" Each word pierces the noise of battle, insistent and determined. The warrior, whose fate now hangs in the balance, decides to follow that voice. His figure cuts off abruptly. He disappears into the bowels of the battle, leaving behind only an explosion of dust and echoes of chaos. "The price will protect us, Burrito. We need to leave," shouts one of the associates. In this cry is not only fear, but also hope for salvation, for escape from the imminent doom that is getting closer every moment. The cry of "You die here" cuts into the noise of battle like lightning, and one of the warriors feels a chill of foreboding. His eyes widen with horror. Something unexpected and terrible is rapidly approaching, something that will change the outcome of the battle. What is it? His thoughts are interrupted by screams of terror echoing everywhere. In the blink of an eye, it becomes clear. The situation is out of control, and now everyone must act quickly to survive in this chaos. Suddenly, the battlefield is illuminated by the light of an unusual blue flame, causing surprise and bewilderment among the warriors. Blue flames? Their minds are filled with legends of ancient magical powers. Meanwhile, tension hangs over the headquarters, where strategists are mulling over plans for next actions. "Your Majesty, it's very dangerous here," cautions one of the advisors, pointing to a map of the troops' positions. "We must link up with our main forces. If you are killed, our army will be finished." His voice is full of urgency, emphasizing the critical importance of the moment to the outcome of the war. The commander dismisses with disdain the thought of fleeing. "Are you suggesting I run with my tail between my legs?" His voice full of anger and contempt for the idea of retreat. The alarm is sounding at headquarters. The warriors standing by the map turn around, recognizing the new development. "They broke through the defenses," yells one of the soldiers, reporting a problem that needs immediate attention. The situation on the battlefield is escalating, and commanders must quickly decide how to change strategy to counter the unexpected turn. With strain in his voice, one of the warlords turns to his comrade. "Please, my lord." He realizes that a critical moment has arrived, and their actions may decide the outcome of the battle. The scene on the battlefield continues to accelerate. Warriors in panic try to organize defense, but the enemy continues the offensive, breaking through their ranks. The commander, focused and determined, prepares for action. His gaze is filled with determination and a willingness to face the threat head-on, not backing down in the face of danger. The warrior's eyes reflect horror. He recalls. The memory of something terrible flashes through his mind, leaving a trail of fear and confusion. In a room filled with strategic plans and heavy thinking, a warning is sounded about blue flames on the battlefield, a sign of great danger. The warrior's face hides a shadow of horror and disbelief, as if he were facing the very embodiment of his fear. Chaos unfolds on the battlefield, and in that chaos he sees a blazing source, a blue flame, a sign of unimaginable power. The scene shifts to the military strategists, who realize the full extent of the threat. If they fall, the entire army will be on the brink of defeat. This moment determines everything. Either they will unite and endure, or all their efforts will be in vain. Suddenly, events take an unexpected turn. A warrior facing an unforeseen threat realizes that they now stand on the threshold of a decisive clash, and their actions at this critical moment could change the course of history. The man immediately and dramatically announced that he would be next. But our hero I only stared intently at the man, immediately turning to him. "Speaking of that look that your greatness in blue colors comes in despair." The heroes continue to address the men by calling him "Your Majesty," because it was clear that he usually looks like a foot soldier, but he doesn't look like one. But the man immediately angrily began to say that he was the commander-in-chief of the army, and his name was Winston Farius. But the heroes only thought it might have been a doppelganger, but maybe not. Then Hero suggested that they just give up because he thought they were going to lose anyway, since it makes no sense to just wipe out your royal family members who are more profitable to have as hostages. Since this is war after all, and he'll be much more useful that way. Although on the same side, he of course still has a whole world, and his sword is with me so as well as his pride for nothing. And all their wars are still being fought, so there's no way I'm necessarily going to continue all this. The heroes just stared at it all thoughtfully, because the man immediately turned around abruptly and said he was going from whatever he saw in his mind at the moment. No reason to give up at all, so he immediately thrust his sword into his hands and with a battle cry decided to engage our hero. Although the hero is well aware that the man will not want to take and give up so easily, so he was well aware that his opponent will not avoid the fight, that actually the man and did immediately throwing himself at our hero, who with ease was able to turn away from the attack of the man. The man continued to attack our hero, even though he was defending himself very well. As well as the hero, I only thought the man said words like, "There's no reason to give up," realizing that if he had hesitated at any point, he would have come to the end of himself and would need to disregard such stupid mistakes in the future, and in no way think about the fact that someone could simply destroy him. After all, he thought the reps were knowledgeable and could only command, but in no way thought they were mere pacifiers with loud titles who could do nothing. But the hero was well aware that his opponent is quite very strong, and it is not possible to defeat him so easily. And the hero is not as equal to him to destroy his rival, for he was very strong indeed. And while the hero, I thought about how he could destroy his opponent, he did not waste a second, so he immediately tried to strike, attacking all the hero. After all, he had already tried to strike at the hero, although the hero noticed this attack in time and was able to dodge, but the fear did not end there. But the man was aggressive in the way by the looks of it, he wanted to win so badly, as was normal. Though the hero, despite having some open areas in his defense, but the man kept hitting the hero and some attacking from some side and leading a bit. And in a moment, they were within a few meters of each other, though so and men still achieved some of their goals. And the man did notice it, but he suddenly saw our hero turning around and ready to attack. But it was not yet clear what that attack would be. Suddenly, our hero simply throws his weapon towards his opponent, thinking about it coming right at the target. Although apparently, he couldn't expect a man with the ease of a throwing attack to do so. He was a bit taken aback by it, because he didn't understand why he had thrown away his weapon. But he couldn't even think about the fact that it would just be a deceptive maneuver, since our hero, I was already literally a few centimeters away from him. And yet our hero's attack came right on target, as he still reached his target and delivered a devastating blow, destroying his opponent the moment he began to fall. And the heroes finally realize it's a battle he's winning after all, since there's nothing left of the man. But the moment the man fell, he was only saying that he might have struck that window battle. But the war was not yet Shenna, and our hero, I stared at his defeated opponent, and he immediately shouted with all his warriors that their king had been destroyed. So all the wars immediately realized that they needed to finish off those who were left and let it go. So they immediately rushed with the new appearance into Battle 1. But while the hero, I was watching it all that happened unexpectedly, he heard a voice that responded to his name. Turning around, he saw a man who was crouched beside his rival whom he had previously destroyed at something uttered that could not be addressing our hero. He immediately drew my sword in front of him as a sign of respect. And the picture was choosing new outcomes because so far the hero of Ya is still not sure what's going on. The hero, without raising his eyes, only flew in his thoughts. Something was troubling him, but Paka was not clear what exactly was troubling him. The man immediately told our hero that he was shocked a bit because he didn't expect him to be able to destroy him, saying that it was a very good job and he really couldn't expect such a thing from him. As well as his interest in the matter, he immediately asked what squad he was from. Our hero immediately replied that he was from Dwayne's squad. The man immediately said that he would be rewarded quite so well for what he had done, to which our hero said that he was happy to try. Well, the man also said that he should try not to die until he gets his reward. And then one of the guys from our hero's squad came up to the hero and asked him how he was doing. The hero replied that he was very tired, but thank God he was able to win the fight and stayed alive. But also hero was interested in how the others, because he thought not only about himself but also about others, to which he received the answer that all the others Bordriach come. But then the commander also turned to the hero saying that they should not relax because everything is not over yet, but he was now the main thing, is to see if anyone has a drink, to which the hero I smiled and said that he was sweating like a horse, but still wants to fight. But while the heroes handled the commander work further, and at some point the hero looked at all this a little upset, was offended, as his look immediately changed. For he believed that this victory over the kingdom signaled the imminent end of the war from some country. It was good enough. We have something upsetting him too. For they realized that they had very much reported that the master was a permission, but still did not understand what they should do now, as their confusion was. The man was very much at a loss as to how to beat him further. I didn't realize it was for the sake of everything. I've been doing everything for the captain all these 5 years. For what did she betray her country? He realized that this was the end of it, showed only most of what he was demanding forgiveness by his daughters as they capitulated. Man, by all his clothes, was very much distressed at what he was not what he was doing, and at what was to be. But everyone immediately started waxing, no saying it was the wrong decision. All immediately cried out that he had sold his country some of his gains, and also he had lived before all their lands. Everyone immediately pointed guns at him, but the man didn't understand what he was supposed to do. The only thing he said was for them to forgive him. And at the same time, one of the guys realized that not why they were called to such a big mansion, addressing the commander, because maybe he did something wrong on what the other guy, only she told her that he also does not understand yet. But the commander also said he could hear them very well, and they did something wrong in no way if the commander was mouthed off by one of the guys. But the same commander said they were being honored for their accomplishments on the battlefield, and that's why they are all present here. But the heroes began to think, because the same thing said the commander of the cavalry detachment realizes something is not right here. And all the militaries sat at one big state and waited for what would happen next. But the heroes also wondered if the commander how to drink tea properly. Ishek, to which he immediately replied that he had heard that aristocrats drink like that, and he immediately, one of the guys, decided to try and drink tea like a real aristocrat. And everyone here is the same, like chugging tea out of a cup. At one time couldn't create his brain and taste buds, I mean, they didn't realize it was real black tea. But they all drank tea, and the weaker ones really liked it a lot as it had been a long time since they'd had something like that. Groy immediately began to say that it was a beautiful and elegant flavor, and he apparently missed that flavor very much. Everyone immediately started saying that they were all looking at him and smiling at the old Spitfire. But a man came in abruptly and greeted everyone at the table, said he'd see them partying from some country. Maybe that's a good thing, but maybe not even a good thing. And then it says that they're all attached as in feet, really not, and now they're going to talk a little bit. To which our hero, I only wondered why Grandpa was staring at him like that, because it made him very tense to realize that this is what a god I am in the War Commander burger. Though the male hero sipped his tea, which he already had poured and hot, and he was surprised to hear about his achievements, because he did not expect that a foot soldier and not a cavalry could destroy King Ferris, saying that he was outsmarted, especially by our protagonist. He immediately went on to say that he had invited them to personally present them with the award, to which the commander smilingly only said that the commander-in-chief was flattering them. But here all the fighters were very surprised, as they did not know that their commander could be polite. The man immediately questioned if he was the squad leader since he had heard for him, and he had also heard that he was nicknamed the Swift Lion, saying that the Empire of the Crane is grateful to him, to which the commander immediately thanked for the compliment because these words were important to him, and also. But then the man suddenly turned his attention to our hero and asked if he remembered his name correctly. For 6 months after enlistment, hardened fighting on the frontier, and his skill as a commander, and learned Magi from one of the men well as well. Our hero used Dennis Faddis during the battle. But also, Commander-in-Chief, I noticed that the hero has an incredible ability, and is really shocked. Our hero only lowered his head and in many ways said this to the one who serves the fatherland. And also the blue flame spreading the enemy of hell is a tale he had heard everyone, and in the distant past it had been used by heroes as well as prominent adventurers, and was very curious if he was one of them. So she commander immediately turned to his aide to fetch something. And unexpectedly for our hero, he was brought a mask that was placed right in front of him. It is said that its owner was from a squad that wore armor in another world, and together they fought against 3 great powers. And this mask is shrouded in mystery, but it is said that it belonged to the previous owner of the Wandering Fire. And then the unexpected hero, I picked up this mask and immediately put it on, which the man only said it suits him very much. So he advised the hero I kept this mask. Well, also the hero unevenly. Why he at this time felt a slight afterlife, he immediately thought it was strange, not realizing what this feeling was after all something to do with his past world. And also the commander-in-chief immediately said that all his future opponents shuddered before that mask in the video interrogated our hero. Did he like it? Our hero, I didn't dare to show up right away, a little squirming. He just looked thankful for such a gift. But suddenly the mask literally trembled and started making noises. The hero of this one wasn't exactly shocked. He was very frightened. I don't understand what's going on. And many who sat at the table also immediately did not understand. They themselves have already peeled off that only the man who taught magic to our hero did not move even a hair, and also the commander-in-chief immediately laughed. Everyone immediately started talking about how this mask was the curse of the hero. Literally after taking it off, he immediately turned pale and no one around him understood what was going on, and what this mask was. The hero shrieked too, she team still not realizing what it was after he saw that he was just sitting on a chair and laughing. The man just kept laughing, asking the only question, did he like the gift? On the fact that the characters apparently weren't thrilled with such a thing, as it didn't fit why the mask abruptly started screaming and began shaking. To which the man immediately said that he almost choked with laughter, and also talked about not being afraid because she had not hurt anyone yet, saying that it is a kind of weapon with a will of its own, and it is very picky about the choice of its master. Once everyone had received their awards and finished their tea, they immediately began to leave the room. To which the commanders immediately said that he was tired, and besides the awards he did not like at all. Also others have remarked that they did not understand what they would do with it, and the hero at heart did not understand because surely, as the ocean said, she commander will keep it to himself, because why not better not throw away this devil's mask? But immediately the commander began to shout, not realizing that he was completely crazy dare to cross the commander-in-chief. As the others immediately apologized for even thinking of such a thing, they were very sorry. But the heroes only thought about the fact that this is a very strange world, where the mask with its will and how it works it is not clear yet, as he did not understand where he was reborn and these skills and magic. Meanwhile, workers did some industrial cleanup further into the city, as well as picking inscriptions out of monuments and changing glass. Everyone just looked at me, destroyed their warriors, thinking that they are Miard soldiers. Don't you realize what they are doing here? But some Arabs defended their city to the end, even though they knew they were doomed. Because nothing is eternal, not power, not wealth, and all of that can change in the blink of an eye.